We'll
Okay
take it.
then. I guess we might as well get straight into it. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Swarmcast episode 14. Uh,
14,
yeah, it's
wow.
been a we've had our run. Obviously, not as long as some other things we'll be discussing today, but we're here today doing an interview with the legendary Caspar. He needs no introduction. I don't even know why I'm saying this, but you'll all know him. He's like a pillar of the London TOing scene. The one of the people that basically made South London into the scene it is today. Perhaps the person you'd attribute that most to. So
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me on such a production as the Swarmcast.
yeah, thank you for coming again, as you have supported it in our earlier days. I'm going to start from the beginning, Caspar. Um,
Good
the
place.
classic question I'm going to begin with is, how did you get into Smash, Caspar? And when did you begin playing? How did it come into your life in the first place?
So, most of the players in the UK now are too young to know about this, but Melee was actually a pretty popular party game before it was a competitive esport.
So I've heard. Apparently, it was quite well selling as well. It's
Yeah,
like the
yeah,
best selling
best-selling
game on
game
the
on the
GameCube.
GameCube.
Yeah, yeah. But please go on.
So I played it in I don't know, 2003, 2004 maybe, when I was in primary school with my friends,
Okay.
which were happier times. Played Kirby primarily. Actually, the first time I played Super Smash Bros. In general, I played Smash 64 with my cousin in Australia. I played Kirby with him, and I was like, well, the character's amazing. I bet it will translate to Melee. And as far as I knew, it did.
Yeah, there's a lot of similar, what's it called, moves, right, between the two games. Like
Yeah,
Kirby's,
it looks the same.
yeah, I mean, Kirby's up tilt is the same thing, right? Obviously not as busted, but
And he's got new
that's
moves.
true as well.
No, he's got like a hammer. It's like,
Oh yeah, special moves, right? That was new to. That wasn't new, was it?
They had some special moves in 64, but they didn't have as many. Yeah, I love Melee then. I spent a long time grinding the single player modes to unlock all the trophies. I played it as a casual game throughout my childhood, throughout school. The closest time I had a brush with the competitive scene then was actually Comrade might remember this, because Comrade went to my secondary school, in case any viewers don't know that. We had some friends that we dabbled in like competitive Pokemon with.
Okay.
And one of them, I think we organized like a league, and one of them wanted to make it a multi-game league with Smash, maybe something. Anyway, one friend of ours like learned to wave dash, and went up, looked up some Ken videos, and we all thought we were amazing at Melee, obviously, and then we played him.
The classic.
We suddenly couldn't touch him, and we were like, "This, why would you ruin the game by adding these elements? This isn't fun anymore." So we just didn't play with him.
Oh my god, you isolated him. Yeah, okay.
Which I think is the experience a lot of people had with Smash back in the day. It was fun while it was chaotic, and as soon as there was any reason to it, it wasn't interesting anymore. Which is, a lot of people still fail to understand competitive Smash coming from that angle. I think
that comes up again and again. Outsiding eyes peering in, right?
Yeah.
But, so yeah, you and Comrade back then were playing Smash on a regular basis, I'm guessing.
Yeah, pretty regularly. I mean, it wasn't like we would specifically meet up every week to play Smash, but it was just like one of the.
And you were quite
quite
close friends back then as well. It wasn't like
for sure.
I don't know. I know I don't think Lyle and Omid were close friends, right? They just happened to go to the same school, but you two were like besties.
Well, Lyle and Omid then went in the same year, right?
Oh, perhaps they went in the same year. Yeah. I don't think. I don't know.
But yeah, me and Oscar hung out a lot. That's cool. So yeah, the first when I actually got interested in competitive Melee was when I was at uni, desperate to have something to do to fill my time when I was up at 1 a.m. in the morning, not doing any work.
So this was at Warwick, right?
This was at Warwick, yes. The venue of what was the tournament called?
I don't know what.
Warzone
Warzone. Oh, you're talking about
Siege?
the one now? Yeah, the one that happened today, Warzone Siege. Yes.
Congratulations, Francie.
Yeah.
I actually had a really backwards route into competitive Smash because I was sort of interested in FGC stuff before I was interested in Smash. And I only really started watching FGC events because of Salty Bet, which is like the dumbest way to get into the FGC possible.
Okay.
But there you go.
Yeah, I feel like I've asked you about this before. I remember you explained it to me one time in the Four Quarters Attic, but I've completely forgotten. What actually is Salty Bet? Because you have it in your Twitter bio, right? Salty Bet Legend.
I do. It's pretty. A lot of people remember it because it was like huge on the internet for like a month, and everybody forgot about it. Basically, it's a website where you watch AI-controlled random characters fighting each other.
Okay.
Which it is. So, all right, I guess I'll explain. There's this program called Mugen, which was developed many years ago, as like a modular fighting game engine. The idea is you can take characters from other fighting games and with a minimal amount of programming import them into this engine and have them fight each other.
Is this the one that had like Tom Hanks and Goku in like the main Twitch picture? Yeah, I remember seeing this.
That is correct. As well as taking actual fighting game characters, people made up random nonsense like Ronald McDonald and Goku and Tom Hanks, which is a great concept. Mugen is awesome. And this guy basically came up with the idea of, he had a big collection of Mugen characters and he would just have them on loop fighting each other controlled by AI, and people would watch. And originally it was just for downtime between actual fighting game events, but people watching that got way more popular than watching real fighting games. So he made the website just that, and people would bet fake money on the outcome. And I don't want to get into too much of a rabbit hole because I could talk about Mugen for literally hours. But
the impression I'm getting is this is like basically like AI cockfighting. Basically, is what you're betting on.
Yes, that is a good summary. I got very, 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 very into it, and at one point I was in the top 5 in the world in terms of how much fake money I had on that website.
So what? I mean, we're trying not to delve too deep into it, but like, what if you were able to put that much time into it and have like a measurable result out of it, right? There must have been something to like. Did you just know that certain characters counted other characters, or? So
this is actually a decent segue because my obsession with Salty Bet is when I first started developing my techniques for rankings.
Okay.
I had like a huge data dump of all the results from the website, and I did a bit of research into, ranking algorithms, and basically just fed all that data into Glyco to come up with, a strength for each character, and I would use that to inform my betting.
Rather than using like some sort of synthesis of them, you just decided Glyco was the one that best fit? Yeah,
I guess so. Glyco is like the most sophisticated thing that you can do with like a straightforward input of winners and losers. So Elo, just works by when two people face each other. If somebody wins, their score goes up a certain amount depending on what the opponent's Elo was, and vice versa. Glyco has another layer of sophistication because every player or character has an uncertainty value.
Okay.
So the more results you have for that character, the lower their uncertainty.
I see.
And when you beat that player, your score won't change as much if their uncertainty was high, because the system isn't sure what the significance of that win is.
So if I'm thinking of it correctly, would it be like some sort of like linear regression model, I guess? Or would it take a different form?
Yeah, I guess so. The mathematically, the uncertainty is basically just a standard deviation that's applied to each person's score.
Okay, that's cool.
And I've long maintained the illusion that creating those scores requires a lot of expertise in maths, but in fact, I basically just found an implementation of Glyco online and plugged all the results into it. Yeah, basically I was watching FGC stuff because of Salty Bet, and when they had a few multi-game tournaments, this was in 2013, they would have Melee on usually as one of the earlier games because people in the FGC didn't care about it, so it was like the warm-up pack for Street Fighter. But for me, who had to go to bed by 1 o'clock or whatever, Melee was usually the last thing I could see. And Melee in 2013 was kind of interesting because I got to watch a few events leading up to EVO, and then I got to watch EVO, which is obviously a monumental thing for everybody who was around back then. And that sort of got me hooked on the whole thing. But I still I wasn't remotely considering playing it myself.
You were.
I just thought this would be something cool to watch on the weekend.
So, I mean, how later on down the line, was it 2015 then that you actually ended up at the tournament?
Yes, that is right. It was like it's a huge, just random thing that happened that could have gone a different way. I could have easily never got involved with anything to do with this, but
cool.
In 2015 I moved back to London. I was at uni up in Warwick, and then I lived in Brighton briefly after graduating. But I moved back to London. I'd never looked up any locals in Brighton or anything, which I kind of regret because I think VA was still around back then.
Yeah, that's true.
But I can't remember. I must have been watching some sort of European tournament, and I saw an ad that had been taken out on the stream by the Four Quarters.
Okay, seriously, a European tournament.
Yeah.
So this would have been like Lever or something that you're watching.
Something like that.
So Four Quarters took out an ad on a stream, and you saw that, a young movie saw that ad.
Okay, that's crazy.
That actually is crazy.
Because I mean, it's not like the Four Quarters did that regularly in the years since. It was just kind of a one-off thing. So I looked them up, and I found out they were hosting a viewing party for Air 2.
Well, rather than actually going.
Yeah, well, I wasn't gonna. That's my first tournament travel.
Yeah, I mean, the people there didn't go though. The people who are already invested in the scene. That's interesting. But yeah, that's very What's the word? It's like serendipitous. Yeah, exactly. It's very serendipitous.
So yeah, having just moved back to London, I thought it might be a way to meet some people, and it turns out it was, because there I met Daisy and Buckfast Bill, who were two of the founding members of the South London scene. I got chatting to them, and I asked them if they ever had any kind of practice meetups or anything that I could come along to, and that's how I made friends with these guys.
And so in the beginning for Four Quarters, like, were they doing brackets, or when you say that, because I know that you said that Daisy was one of the people that helped like establish the scene, right, just now, but my understanding was that it was actually Cyro who started running brackets in the first place.
So originally, because Simon and Charlie G had played Smelly together when they were at university a couple of years previously. And then they were both living in South London, and Simon was a regular DJ at the Four Quarters.
Really? They had... Where was the space for a DJ?
I mean, the layout used to be different, but downstairs behind where the projector is, there's like a mixing desk, I think.
Yeah, I remember seeing on the stream that there could have been space for that, because I noticed that it got redone, because I obviously hadn't been to Four Quarters until to Quartered until recently, but yeah, that's interesting. So, but Simon Cyro, for anyone that doesn't know, he actually has been playing Smash for a long time, right? Because I heard a story of him living in Stockholm and training with Leffen,
That's what he always says. I don't know how accurate that is, but he did claim to be friends with Leffen back in the day. I don't know if Leffen, if you're watching this, I don't know if you remember Simon, but tweet at us.
Yes, please let us know, Leffen. Someone clip this and send it to him. Simon Roth Bowman is the guy, right?
Yeah, Simon Robot, yeah. So he obviously got chatting with Greg, who was working at the bar at the time, and found out that Greg also was interested in Melee. And as far as I know, it was Simon's idea to use the space to host a tournament. which him and Charlie and Greg were involved in. And this would have been, I guess, either late 2014 or early 2015 was when the first one happened. I'm not sure exactly.
Okay.
And so this was around the time that we had Meltdown as a regular melee event.
This was in.
But there were no.
In the Hog.
There were no large
in
events.
The Hog. No, sorry. Meltdown was.
No, before the Hog.
That was also South London, right? Or maybe it was more central.
No, it was
Okay.
central. There was a bar in central London.
It was central.
But yeah, there weren't any like large London events, and there wasn't much of an infrastructure. Obviously, there were players in London like Prof and AD and Jolteon, and they would occasionally come to Four Quarters. But yeah, there wasn't any kind of structure in place like there is now.
So I want to cycle back a bit, Caspar, because Melee obviously is not the only game, the only Nintendo game that you've taken like quite seriously and had a competitive run at. You also spent a lot of time speedrunning Metroid Zero Mission, right? For the Game Boy Advance. Can you tell me a bit about because this is very technical in some parts, right? In my understanding, I think I watched a video where I heard you explain like there was things called doubles, right? Like double
I mean,
which were like frame perfect inputs that you had to do.
Yeah, every speedrunner will say the game is very technical, obviously. Okay. So yeah, Zero Mission. This was, I guess, my biggest hobby before Melee. Was I got into playing Zero Mission. It's just I don't know why I got into it. Like Zero Mission was a game I played through multiple times, casually because it was just a fun game. I just decided to look up what a speedrun of it looked like. And there was at the time, quite famous run by the legendary runner Dragon Dutch, which was the world record that everybody studied. And Zero Mission's like a relatively easy game to pick up, I guess, because the game itself is sort of structured for speedrunning, and then there's like a bunch of intended shortcuts and cool ways to pick up items. So I just played through the route and thought, oh yeah, that's fun. I'll do it again, see if I can do it faster. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, speedrunning was really interesting. I got into the game at kind of an opportune time when there was kind of a little bit of a renaissance. There was a group of active runners. There was a speedrunner, I don't know if he's still active, called Kirby Master, who had quite a popular stream at the time. And he started playing it, so that brought a bunch of attention to the game. And there were a few of us all working on the game at the same time and coming up with new routes and stuff, which was super fun. And I got into streaming. Before we had stuff like Slippy, like capturing game footage from a GameCube is actually pretty hard.
Yeah, I don't know. So this was
I invested a lot.
This was done by that Game Boy add-on that you had on the GameCube, I'm presuming.
That's right. Yeah, the Game Boy player.
Yes. Okay.
I mean, that's like a hurdle in itself. If you want to stream Game Boy Advance game, you have to buy this quite rare now add-on. But yeah, I spent quite a lot of money on weird streaming gear back in the day.
Was it like mostly what they called dazzles back then?
Yeah. I mean, it does the job, but the quality is garbage. So, but yeah, I got kind of good at Zero Mission because I played it for a while. The trick you're talking about, the first boss.
Double missiles.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, this is the double missile. You have to shoot its eye with 3 missiles to kill it. Each time you hit it, closes its eye for a few seconds while it does some annoying animation. But yeah, if you manage to time your missiles in such a way that you can hit it with 2 different missiles on the same frame, then they both count, takes double damage. And it's hard. It is kind of frame perfect. Like the frame that you have to fire the missile on depends how many frames after firing the first missile you start jumping. So there's a couple of different permutations. There's loads of tricks in the game. There's bomb jumping and shine spark stuff you can do. I don't know how much you know about Metroid stuff.
I don't know too much, to be honest.
Okay. It's a really fun game. And yeah, I traveled to Sweden to take part in one of these charity events they had. It was much smaller than it is now, because Games Done Quick was already huge at the time, and ESA was like a tiny thing in comparison. We were all kind of bitter about it.
I can imagine.
But it was really funny. It was they have a lot of like, it's easy to get funding for like organizing events of this sort. I think like Beast, I remember
yes.
they used to get the venue
Because,
for free because it was like registered as some youth
Yeah,
event.
it was like they had to pay like a quarter of the price because it was a youth
Right.
event, but it meant that no one could like drink in the venue, I think.
Yeah, that's right. I think they had a similar deal for ESA where they hired out this space for really
It's
cheap.
kind of, I think like the local authority or something like that in Sweden.
Right.
Provided events, but yeah.
And it was just like, 100 people who were all nerds from across Europe, just like sleeping in a big hall together and playing video games all day, which is kind of the dream. It was certainly the dream when I was like 21. I'm not sure. It sounds a bit exhausting now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a good time. It had almost a similar feel to the way a good like European melee major
Like a
has.
Fate or an Arrow.
Yeah, because there's a lot of downtime with people just hanging out and drinking together and wandering around Sweden, being confused at things.
It sounds like fun. Yeah. Did you actually end up going to like a Beast, Caspar?
Yeah, I went to the last Beast,
Cool. Which
was a mixed experience.
What? How come?
I think so, yeah. I mean, it was mostly fine. It was a lot less fun than Air, obviously.
Was there like a significant amount of UK people that went, or was it?
Yeah. There were quite a few UK people. I actually roomed with the Colchester scene, which no longer exists anymore.
So this was. Let me try and rattle them off. You can tell me if I get. This is you testing me now.
Okay.
Daisy, of course, right? Gary.
Daisy didn't go.
Oh, okay.
No.
So, was Kivoth one of them?
No.
Really?
I don't think
You know
so.
what I'm talking about though, the math name. Alex.
Yeah, I
Alex
think he was there.
Right? I think he did go. I'm
Really?
pretty sure he did go.
I didn't room with him anyway.
So Top Hat Pat.
Yes.
I don't know what his tag is, but Seb Kales.
Which is that sheep?
No, that's not sheep. That's someone else.
Oh.
That's sheep.
Yes, sheep.
JJ Linyard go.
I don't think so.
This is terrible. So Top Hat Pat and sheep were the one. Oh, did Elliot go? Elliot, the Luigi main.
Oh, I don't think so.
God.
I know who you mean.
Okay.
If sheep was there, who was always with sheep?
Top Hat Pat, right?
And
I don't know.
Wingus.
I don't know. I actually have never met Wingus.
You serious?
I've
Oh my
seen,
god.
Because the only times I've seen sheep were like at random times he decided to show up. I think post him not taking the game seriously, and I saw him with Elliot, and I saw him with Top Hat Pat, and those are the only two I saw. So Wingus.
Wingus used to be like, me and Daisy looked up to him. He was like, he could get out of pools at Kickstart 2 or whatever. He was like a serious competitor.
That's interesting. So what? I don't know. So how like seriously do you feel like you took the game though? Was that something that you committed a lot of time to and you felt like was, I don't know, a passion of yours, or was it just like
I guess so.
Like a side hobby? Because I feel like,
I mean,
especially in
speedrunning,
Melee, right? There's varying degrees to which people take the game, right? And some people get quite obsessive and devote a lot of time to it, while some others, just do it as a thing for fun. So, where would you say that you yourself were in like that kind of spectrum?
I did spend a lot of time on it, but I never thought of it as something other than a fun hobby. But I mean, speedrunning in general was a lot smaller back then. It's not like now. There's kind of a culture of most speedrunners are trying to be full-time streamers.
Yeah.
That didn't really exist back then. There were only like 4 or 5 full-time speedrunners.
That's kind of like a really recent thing, right? Because I feel like,
I'd say so.
I don't know, like late last year or maybe early last year, like CLG just scooped up a bunch of speedrunners.
Right.
I don't know. It's not a thing I know too much about, but yeah.
I definitely like there was a decent amount of competition amongst people trying to push their times down, because there were a few people around the same level who were all, racing to the bottom. I actually, I have a really fraudulent part of the world record history for Zero Mission. So there was like a schism between people who wanted to go by the in-game timer and people who wanted to go by real time.
I noticed this on the like the leaderboards, right?
Right. In-game time was just like a tradition. Like the old record keeping website was a website called Speed Demos Archive. I don't know if you know anything about that.
I've seen it in like the summoning salt videos.
Right. And they only accepted in-game time. They didn't care about real time ever. But then real time got a lot more popular when people started doing races a lot. And for me, real time always made more sense.
Yeah.
Especially because there were like specific strats you could do that involved like pausing the game, which were essentially free if you were going by in-game time, right? You didn't get a penalty for pausing. Anyway, whatever. There was a whole thing about it, and the strategies were actually kind of different. Like there were different routes that involved less loading time if you're going for real time, that sort of thing. The conventional wisdom was still to mostly use in-game time back then, but then this guy, Dragonfangs, who's a tasser and a runner himself, he discovered this really dumb exploit where if you pause and unpause the game really quickly, like a bunch of things on the screen progress by 1 frame, but Samus doesn't and the timer doesn't.
Okay.
So anytime you're waiting for like an animation to play out, it's optimal to just mash pause for like 2 minutes. So then the animation will keep going, but your time won't advance.
Oh my goodness. That must have been like a really challenging thing, right? Did that make how often would you have to do something like that for that long?
Oh no, nobody did it. Everyone immediately said, all right, we're just going to go to it real time because this is too stupid.
Okay. That makes sense.
And even though I wasn't the best player at the time, I was the best player who was going for real time strats.
Okay.
So I briefly had the world record because of the switch in timing.
So you
method.
did have you were just, I mean, you seem very modest about it, Caspar, but you had the world record because you're a trailblazer in this.
I guess that's one way of putting it.
In this category, right? In this way of measuring. Oh, that's very. I mean, I'm looking at the leaderboard now. I don't know how accurate speedrun.com is. It's
pretty accurate.
And you're still.
I made this page on speedrun.com, by the way.
In any.
That's pretty funny.
And there's like quite a few people in this category that have tried their hands at it.
Maybe. By the way, just want to point this out. There's a couple of melee notable people on this leaderboard.
Eagle, right?
There's Eagle, who was former like top 25 in Europe. Darkmane.
The number 1 in Denmark for the longest time, right?
Denmark. Yes, and there's also Sam the Digital, who has multiple Break the Targets world records.
Oh, was this the? Did you not mention? I think you tweeted about him, right? That you were like an old friend.
He was in
the Peach.
Yeah. He was in the Peach video. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I mean, there's a lot of. I feel like a lot of speedrunners have like crossover with melee, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like
actually,
that guy, the Fox main, what's he called? Is it Torier?
Oh yeah, sure, yeah. He's the Ocarina of Time player. I guess technically the first like competitive smasher I met was Fuzziness because he also went to ESA.
Really? That's interesting. Because I mean, how did I forget Fuzziness as well?
And also, I guess in a way, that's also the first melee event I entered was the melee side event at ESA.
Have a melee side event there.
Yeah, they did. I might be able to find the challenge eventually. but yeah, it's funny that I'm still top 10. My main like point of pride in this is that there's nobody ranked above me who has a run older than mine.
Really? I mean, yeah, you're right. Yours is the oldest by quite a bit, actually. I mean, actually, this 15th guy. I
Most of
don't
my
know how much comment to pass, by the way, because I feel like like a relative novice, because I am. But so yeah, I don't know. Is there anything else you want to say about your Metro Zero Mission days?
Well, only that I couldn't really. He made a weird tweet that I didn't understand. But Draz was at the last AGDQ, and he said he was like chatting to some people there who remembered me as a speedrunner, which was kind of funny. Yeah.
He went to AGDQ, Draz.
Yeah.
Isn't
He plays
Pikmin, yeah,
Pikmin.
doesn't he? I remember last time I heard he was like second in the world, but I don't know. Has
Yeah,
he
I'm not
progressed
sure.
since then? I don't know. He was definitely.
I have
he was
no
definitely
idea.
second in the world. I remember.
That's pretty cool.
World record now. That'll be interesting. That'll be exciting.
Well, it's about fucking time. Jesus Christ. It's about fucking time I got this run. Oh man, this has been a long time coming.
This is. I'm gonna go now into like a realm I actually don't know much about. I only have a single bullet point on it, and it's also something you're competitive in, I believe. Perhaps to not the same heights, but Magic the Gathering, right? It's
Sure.
I don't know how much you want to say about that, but I don't know. I'll give you the floor.
Yeah, I mean, no,
I'll
a
give you
huge
the floor.
amount.
So, like, I don't know, how much when did you get into it, and like, how much does it mean to like you, I suppose?
I've been playing Magic on and off since I was about 10, I think. I got into it. I don't know exactly how. I think it was like something my dad bought me because he thought it looked cool. But unfortunately, he did not, stick with the game and become obsessive like I did.
Yeah.
I never, like, all through when I was like in school age, I didn't play hardly at all because I didn't have any friends who were into it. But I occasionally collected cards, and back when magazines existed, I bought a few magazines that had articles on Magic. But then I got into it a lot more when I went to uni, actually, because even though I never found any melee players at Warwick, I did find quite a few Magic players, and I played a lot at that time. And yeah, I play occasionally now. Just in the last few months, I've started playing online a lot recently. And Magic is like an absolutely incredible game. Without going into too much detail,
I mean, feel free.
It's like
yeah,
it's the best game that I play.
Okay.
Sorry, it is a better game than
That's
Melee.
fair enough if you really believe it. But yeah.
I would suggest trying it out. It pains me a little that there are so many Melee players that are into Yu-Gi-Oh! Because like,
do you see it as like?
I don't want to just like
area?
shit on Yu-Gi-Oh! Like it's like it's okay to be into Yu-Gi-Oh! But it does not have the same kind of strategic depth that Magic has.
That's fair enough. I mean, how like you spent a lot of time at uni playing it then, because you found the community there.
Yeah.
How seriously do you think you took it then as well?
Never very seriously. Well, serious is kind of hard to define in Magic terms. Like I'm definitely better at Magic than I am at Melee, and yet I've been to fewer Magic tournaments than I have Melee tournaments. Because I don't know. Like, there's a couple of factors here. So Magic Melee tournaments is like the default way to experience Melee, right? That's just how you play the game. Whereas Magic tournaments is kind of a fairly big barrier to entry. Playing Magic is really expensive, as you may know. And everybody knows that Magic tournaments are like a bad idea financially.
I
So-
did like for you entering them or the idea of running them.
Yes. No, just entering them. Like even if you're a Melee player, if you're like pretty good, you can go to like a quarter and expect to make your money back. Whereas in Magic, even if you're fairly confident you're the best player in the room, you don't have any guarantee of making a profit when you go to an event.
When you say guarantee, you mean, like,
Um,
there's the chance of it being there, and it's down to like the randomness of the game, or
Yeah, I don't want to. It is down to the randomness in the game, which sounds like I'm saying, "Oh, Magic's a bad competitive game because it's random." That's not what I'm saying. But like the outcome of any one specific game of Magic is a lot less guaranteed than the outcome of like any one specific game of Melee.
okay, yeah, of course.
So the important thing with Magic is not to like place importance on individual games. Being a good Magic player means, you do well on average over a long period. Whereas in Melee, each specific game is very important, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah, you can't put as much
anyway,
weight on Magic games as you would Melee games, is what you're saying.
Yeah. If one player wins a game of Melee, you got like a reasonable idea that they're better than the person they beat. What I was saying is I was never like a tournament grinder for
Okay,
Magic.
that's fair enough. I mean, there's also like
But
obviously like online tournaments. Are those more of a thing? Because obviously it doesn't have like the amount of like it's a turn-based game, so like net play isn't like as much of a barrier as it would be in Melee, I'm supposing.
yeah, that's true. People play online a lot, but generally not for like super high stakes, I think.
Okay. That's fair enough. But it's a good place for improving, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it's a good place to get practice, definitely.
Yeah, I don't know where else to ask about it. But yeah, I don't know. How do you feel about the fact that you've been in a lot of these different competitive scenes? Like, I feel like it shows like an overarching like kind of competitive spirit within you, Caspar.
I guess so. This was kind of
quite. I mean, if you ask a lot of people what their hobbies are, like, I don't know. I feel like a few people, like maybe Ian sticks out in my mind as someone who does like tennis and Melee, right? But I feel like for a lot of people, Melee is their competitive outlet. But for you, it seems
right.
I don't want to be like some armchair psychologist, but it seems like you're kind of like seeking it out quite a bit. If you know what I mean. Do you think that'd be fair to say?
It certainly was when I first started playing Melee. This was actually something I sort of discovered in myself that I initially, like for the first, 12 months I was playing Melee, I was quite focused on improving. And it was, for the purpose of competition. I wanted to beat people. I wanted to be able to beat Gary when we played, which I couldn't. Damn him.